We are live.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. I'm Jenny Nicasio along with my fabulous co-host,
Oh, shucks.
Sean Kelly from Pittsburgh Paranormal.
Yeah, how are you? Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I got my red on.
I see that. I see you got your red. And did you make any cookies?
Did I what?
Did you make any cookies for the grandbabies?
They're too little, but I did get some stuffed animals and stuff to play with, But yeah, and my little Ava, she's so jealous. It's sad. Poor Ava. She's a little sad person. So she's not a person. She's my person. She's my little doggy.
Yeah, Ava. How old is she now?
She's gonna be 10.
10. Wow.
Yeah, 10.
I know. I wouldn't want to meet her down the dark alley. Man, she'd be.
No, you won't. You won't want to meet Ava. She's
no.
She's a German Shepherd, but she's not real friendly. I mean, she could be friendly, but she's not very friendly.
Well, heck,
I love her.
Oh, of course you love her. It's your dog, but I heard her bark. That's all I need to do is hear her bark, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah,
I have a question to ask you.
Sure, yes, go away, buddy.
You sent me that link about the 10 weird things about Valentine's Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do women actually send themselves their own flowers and cards?
Sean, I went out, that song with Miley Cyrus? Come on, you know the song. You hear it on TikTok all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I can buy my own flowers. I can dance in the nude.
Okay. So is that true, though?
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yeah, I bought myself flowers today.
Uh-huh.
Trying to fix my little camera that's too low, too high. I can't tell which one it is. No, I'm too short. I can't win. I'm like what's that called when you're hyperactive?
Hyperactive.
I think calm down now, guys.
Yeah, relax.
But we had an interesting week, to say the least, guys. So if you have any comments or chat questions for our guests tonight, please post in the chat on YouTube, because we can't really see them on Facebook. So if you're on YouTube, please post there. If you have any questions for our guests tonight, and for any of for us, it's going to be a pretty interesting evening, to say the least, with all the stuff that's happening over the skies, and some things in Ohio that may be a false flag for all this stuff. So we're just going to cut to the chase and get right to our guests tonight. We have a special guest that's been on the show, I believe, 3 times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We have Stan Gordan in the house again, and he was trained as an electronics technician who specialized in radio communication. He's worked in advanced consumer electronics sales field for over 40 years. Stan had lived in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, all his life, and he began his interest in the UFO field subject and strange incidents at the age of 10 years old in 1959. That's pretty cool. And in late 1960s, he acted as a telephone UFO operator. Wow, that's cool. For sightings and reports and investigations coordinator for the UFO Research Institute of Pittsburgh. I didn't even know they had a research institute in Pittsburgh. But Sand began the field investigations of UFOs and other mysterious events in 1965, which is pretty cool. And he's primary investigator of the December 9th, 1965 UFO crash recovery incidents that occurred near Kecksburg. I mean, a lot of us we've done shows on Kecksburg before in the past, and we had some try to debunk that. John Ventry is one of the guys who tried to debunk that. Gordan established a UFO hotline, which I think is awesome, and I think we should have more of these for the public to report UFOs sightings that he's investigated, and he's been very active, and we're going to bring him on. Stan, welcome to Chasing Prophecy.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me back on the program.
It's good to have you back.
Hi, Stan. How are you?
We're doing good. Thanks very much for having me back.
Yeah, so Stan, there's a lot of stuff going on your website. You've talked you've had a lot of reports. So go ahead and tell us what's going on.
Last year was just an amazing year. We get reports in every year. My hotline's been open since 1969. It never stops ringing, and between
Hey, Michael, how are you? I don't know where Jenny went. So good to see you, Michael. Everybody went off. So yeah, I guess I'll continue doing the show until.
But back in actually 2021, reports actually began to increase. We began to have a surge of low-level UFO reports coming in from all around western Pennsylvania, different areas, and actually it continued right through 2022. I mean, it was just nonstop all year long, and it wasn't just UFO reports. We were getting Bigfoot sightings. Out-of-place animals like Black Panther reports, Thunderbird sightings, these huge flying creatures. I mean, all kind of stuff. A lot of UFO activity, and many really detailed reports. And that's what was so fascinating was the quality and the detail of the type of reports coming in from widespread areas. But what really caught my interest is something in the UFO field that a lot of people don't seem to know about, and a lot of people don't talk about much, but you're beginning to hear more about it now. Some of the TV shows and on the internet. I started realizing about these cases back in the 1960s. I'll call them mini UFOs because they're very intriguing in the fact that they're not high in the sky, they're low to the ground, and in some cases have come within feet of witnesses, which has happened several times last year in daylight. And really, really interesting reports. So these smaller objects, they range anywhere from a few inches in diameter, sort of like oversized fireflies. Many of them, however, though, are about the size of a golf ball to the size of a baseball, and many around 1 or 2 feet in diameter. They're generally spherical, but not always. Most of the time, however, they are spherical. Sometimes they look like solid metallic objects. Most of the time, they look like spheres of bright luminosity, bright light of different colors. What's really intriguing is over the years I've had reports of these things following vehicles. I've had reports of them entering people's vehicles and people's homes through open windows and then generally going back out. And we have one very strange report, and we've heard others like this too, but I'll tell you about the few minutes of one that reportedly actually appeared inside of a person's home. Really intriguing reports. And so if you like, and it might take a little while, but I'll give you a highlight of just some of the really interesting cases that occurred around the greater Pittsburgh area last year.
Awesome. Go ahead and give us some of those reports.
Well, this will take a little bit. So starting back in January of last year, January 15th of 22, this is up in Armstrong County. So out in the rural area, Armstrong County. And you may recall that's when we had one of the really bad deep freeze conditions where a lot of pipes were freezing and breaking. And the fellow who called me, he was out there around 3 o'clock, after 3 o'clock in the morning. He was under his crawl space under his home because he was afraid that he was going to have some damage with his the pipes under there. And while he was under there, he was hearing these strange noises, strange humming sounds from outside, buzzing noises. And the next morning, his neighbor calls him and said, I want to tell you about something really strange I saw on my property, which is right across the road from the fellow who called me originally. I interviewed him, and he wanted to tell me that early morning hours, he was awakened by his horses that were very, very shaken by something. So he gets up and he starts walking down to his barn. So he's about 150 feet away. He starts approaching the barn when he sees these lights appear over top of the barn. The lights were shining down, and then he could see the horses all moving around. But that's when he observed this object about 20 feet over top of the barn itself. He said the object was kind of teardrop shaped, about 65 to 70 feet long, had a smooth silver or metallic surface to it, looked something like stainless or galvanized steel. It was solid and smooth, he said. It was emitting a humming, buzzing noise. He said there were numerous lights on the surface of the object, and they looked to be round. There were approximately 8 rows of 20 to 30 lights. The lights would change from red to blue, then back to red. And he watched this thing hover for about 5 minutes. Unfortunately, he just walked out of his house. He didn't have a cell phone with him. But he said as he watched this, the light suddenly went out, everything went dark, and the object just disappeared. He said it did not take off, it did not accelerate, it just vanished. And that's something, by the way, we're hearing a lot from people in the last year, even from daylight reports that I'll be telling you about. But anyhow, he said as soon as this object vanished, all the horses went back to their normal behavior. And then it was about 7 o'clock the same morning that we received another report from the Pennsylvania-West Virginia border. And one of my research associates, Jim Brown, I believe he got there within the hour after it happened. And he's a very high-tech guy with a lot of good instrumentation. And this was a woman who observed this object in the sky. So it's kind of like a large dark hole in the sky. And it was just hovering there. She ran to her house to go get a camera. And then something interesting happened. When she touched the metal handle of the door, she got a slight electrical shock, which she never did before. And when she went back out again, she got the same slight electrical shock, like a static charge. And anyhow, when she went back outside, the object was gone. But anyhow, It was interesting because we have had several reports now in the last year and a half of people where there were low-level, close-range UFO encounters where people reported getting like a slight static charge. That's kind of interesting. But that was an interesting morning. Lots of other reports going on all year. I'm just kind of scanning down here with some of the cases, and we can talk about some of the other strange ones. And I told you about some of those small spherical objects, small balls of light or smaller objects on the ground. Here was another interesting one. This was April 6th of last year outside of Choate, PA, up in Fayette County. This was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so here's a husband and wife. They're outside digging in their garden, digging topsoil. They had a wheelbarrow with them. And as they're looking about 50 feet away, they see this small object. They thought at first it was a Mylar balloon. It's silver and circular and about 2 feet diameter. And as they're watching this thing, it gets closer and closer to them. And as it gets closer, it gets much more luminous. It's brighter and brighter, and they realize this thing is not a balloon. So what happens next is really intriguing. So as they're watching this thing, it gets close to them. There was like a little explosion. They said it was like a small lightning bolt shot from the object to the ground. And it sounded like a small firecracker followed by a snap like a spark. The spark started a small fire in the ground, which they immediately put out. And they looked down where the thing had come from, and there was another small fire about 100 feet away along the path. So interestingly, Jim Brown gets on the scene. He got there very quickly, too. He figured, well, if it's the firecracker or the Mylar balloon that broke up and exploded, there'd be a lot of residue there. There was absolutely no residue of any type on the scene. And he checked for all type of electrical connections. He checked the fence out. And it's one of these cases that make you scratch your head. It's this one one of many that were very, very intriguing. April 14th of last year in the afternoon. And I did not put out the description about this object because I wanted to see if we'd receive other reports, and we did. There were other independent reports from just outside of Ligonier during the afternoon of this huge metallic object. Solid looking, about the length. Some people said it may have been as big as a football field. It was flat at the top and the bottom. There were rows of lights on it. One witness told me that it was so bright looking at it, she had to look away because it hurt her eyes. So that was kind of interesting. There's another area that some very strange activity's been going on. There's several areas we know about in Pennsylvania. Some we've known for years. These are certain geographical locations where there's a history of various phenomena ongoing. So we're hearing reports of screams and howls and footprints, and in some cases Bigfoot encounters, or other strange phenomena, strange light, and these balls of light. And last year in April, up in that area, some of the investigators were seeing strange flashes of light, lights in the woods, hearing howls and screams, something heavy walking. And that evening, several of these researchers, who I can tell you were skeptical of hearing the reports that some of these I had discussed in the past of these small balls of light. In some cases, in some different areas of that location of those woods, these small spheres of light were coming up very, very close to them. And I can tell you, these guys were very shaken by what happened. And luckily, one of the documentary companies happened to be there doing a documentary on it, and they were able to videotape some of this occurrence. So that's really intriguing as well. There have been multiple reports last year in daylight of large metallic kind of cigar-shaped objects, cylindrical objects, and quite often in beautiful afternoons, not that high altitude, just hovering there and just suddenly just vanishing. Not accelerating, not taking off, just suddenly vanishing from sight. So that's something we heard from numerous people in different areas as well. And I'm just trying to go through here through some of these. Oh, also, if they go to my website, your listeners could take a look at the picture of it. Website stangordon.info. But on May 14th, quite an interesting photograph was taken of an object over the Chestnut Ridge outside of Latrobe. So the Chestnut Ridge is one of those areas that has a long history of various type of anomalies going on. I've been up there since the 60s, late 60s, checking in those reports. And as we found out historically and year after year, that area is one of the most active along areas of that ridge that goes through West Wallen, Indiana County in southwest Pennsylvania, extends down to a few miles outside of Morgantown, West Virginia, into Preston County, West Virginia. And that area outside of Latrobe, around Derry, and going up through the Laurel Highlands, very active year after year. A lot of activity last year, and I'm already getting reports in the last few weeks of activity going on up there now. But that afternoon of May 14th, a fellow happened to be sitting in a parking lot in Latrobe, looking in that direction towards the east, so then looking kind of towards Ligonier area, and over the ridge. What caused the tension was this object that appeared to be black. It was moving very slowly. Then suddenly there was a big burst of speed, and it moved out of sight very quickly. But he was able to get one photograph of it. There was a photo analysis done on it, and it's a really interesting picture. It looks like a solid black, upside-down, dome-shaped object with a flat top on it. So that's kind of interesting, too. But, I mean, I can go on and on and on. Let me tell you, though, about a couple of these orb reports that are really interesting.
Before we go on, Stan, I have a question to ask you. Is it possible that there is a UFO base up in that area underground?
Well, you hear lots of stories over the years of different people, and again, I have to keep an open mind on all possibilities. I've not seen any evidence of it, but one thing it is interesting that for years and years, I've had reports from all over Pennsylvania and a lot in the greater Pittsburgh area and down in the Mon Valley and other areas here in Southwest PA of people saying they're seeing these objects going into the lakes and rivers, and sometimes going in the river or lakes and then not coming out. Sometimes they're reporting seeing spheres of light objects coming out of the lakes and rivers going up to the sky. So that's something that is of interest. And if you've been following what the new government investigation program is all about, and they're investigating UFO reports, and they seem to be taking them quite seriously now. But they're also very, very interested in what's called transmedium objects, which are these objects that are appearing not only in the sky, but they're moving in and out of the water as well. So they're moving through space and also into the waterway. So that's something of interest as well.
It's pretty interesting stuff. Do you think there's any correlation between what's happening now and any of these sightings?
Now, you talking about all the balloon sightings we're hearing about in the last week or so?
Yes, but some of them weren't balloons. So balloons shaped or material. Do you think anything's correlated with that?
Now, I think the problem is right now there's a lot of media coverage on it. It's getting a lot of news out there, but we really need to have a lot more verifiable information on what's being seen, or hopefully on what they have recovered or will recover, because we just don't know all the details and all the real facts. There's a lot of conflicting data out there. Personally, as of right now, I have not seen any really good data to suggest we're dealing with anything other than man-made. But, and again, who knows? I can tell you this, since I've been out in the field since 1965, investigating thousands of cases, and I've said this for years and years, when you take the time to properly investigate UFO reports, other phenomena, especially UFOs, many of them are misidentifications. They're misidentification of natural or man-made objects. And so we get a lot of, especially in the last few years, we get a lot of reports of Starlink satellites and bright meteors and the reentry of space debris on occasion, and a lot of drone reports and balloon reports too. So over the years, we've had cases for years of balloons coming over. So you have research balloons, probably have military type balloons. You've got a lot of types of weather balloons coming in. And I think it was about a year or two ago that I was investigating an incident. We had a very good video of this very large object was kind of wiggling in the sky. And later on, we were able to find out that apparently it was about a 50-foot long balloon that people can buy and launch. And there's actually balloons out there, large balloons that are manufactured to look like flying saucers that people can release.
Really?
A lot of things out there. And, some people actually, I remember it's probably back in the 70s, people were launching these great big laundry bags, putting candles in them, and letting them go up into the sky. And we were getting a lot of UFO reports. So there's a lot of different kind of balloons that cause these types of sightings. But also, every year, there are incidents being reported that we cannot explain away. I've been investigating for years many close-range, low-level, large, solid objects being reported. And I can tell you about some of those later as well.
That's amazing stuff. Sean, what do you think?
I'm impressed. Every time we have Stan on, I learn more. That means I'm just going to have to go out to Chestnut Hill or Carn City or all the way out there and just sit in the fields and look up in the sky and see if they come. You know what I mean? You know where I stand on aliens, right, Jen? Ladies and gentlemen, this is how I still.
Sean's he's not a real believer in
I've been on the show 4 years now, and I enjoy when we have our guests on that talk UFOs, aliens, but I have to see it to believe it, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. So is there any sightings on Bigfoot lately, or anything like Bigfoot that's different than?
Yeah, I can tell you about that. Look, before we get into that, Chen, let me tell you one thing. I've been doing this research now for over 63 years. I have never seen a UFO or a Bigfoot. I've seen lots of evidence. I've talked to many, many credible people, but I've never seen either one. But when you look at the data, when you interview so many people, when you look at the pattern, you see the similar type of evidence showing up. Even with Bigfoot cases, so many people have seen these things, even in the last week, actually. And these cases are amazing. But before we get into the Bigfoot stuff, let me just give you a few more cases from last year that are really significant.
Go for it.
With the small spheres of light below the ground.
Go for it.
Okay, so here's another one. This is October 8th. This is from up in Fayette County. And this was early morning hours, around 6 o'clock. was awakened later, remembered it was making like a slow circular motion, but he got very, very tired as he was very close to this sphere of light. And when his wife awakened, she was stunned because she found him sound asleep about 7 o'clock outside on the porch in that cold weather in his pajamas, which you would never do. And all he could remember was he got so tired when he was near the sphere of light. So now here's what's really interesting. A few days later, I believe it was 3 days later, about 40 miles away up in the Laurel Highlands. So here's a woman, 2:30 in the morning in her home. She had one of those old homes with the high ceilings. She goes into the bathroom, where she comes out about 5 feet away in the living room. Now that was the high ceiling room. She sees this deep blue sphere about 1.5 feet in diameter. And there was something like a gray swirling mass inside of this object, kind of like an old lava lamp. It was completely silent as it moved slowly, slightly up and down. She remembered taking one step towards it, and that's when she felt like a slight tingling sensation. She said the sensation reminded her of like a pre-jolt of electricity when you're near electric fence, which I understand exactly what she's saying. And she said she remembered looking back at the strange round object for about 10 seconds. Then suddenly she became very sleepy and immediately went to bed. And she said the next day she could hardly get up, that she was very sluggish and groggy. But she said this was so unusual. She said, I'm an insomniac. I can't sleep. For me to go to sleep right away is not like she is. So that's just a couple examples of what's going on. And I can tell you, interestingly, we're not getting reports just from rural areas. We're getting reports now, including one just in the last week, in more urban areas, in housing developments, where some of the security cameras are going off. They're letting people know there's some movement outside, and they're seeing these small orbs of light just floating right by their house. It is really amazing what's going on. That's just an example. And here's another report. This would have been November 3rd, so not too long ago, in daylight, 11:50 in the morning, up in Mount Pleasant Township. Here's a fellow that contacted me who is very much aware of the aircraft in the area. And he said, I've never seen like it before. He said, it was a clear, beautiful morning. And he looks up and he sees this object. He said, this thing, even at the altitude it was at, looked like it could be about as long as a football field. Cigar shaped with smooth edges and white color. He said it had no wings and there was no contrail. And he got into his vehicle and just moved a short distance down the road to get a better view. And when he got out, he said it was gone. And he said he could not understand how he could not see it in that short period of time. He should have been able to see it leave, and it was just gone. That was typical of many reports we received from different people in different areas for months. These large cigar-shaped objects that just vanished, and that was it. So that's just an example. So getting back to Bigfoot, I receive Bigfoot reports every year in Pennsylvania, and there were some very significant incidents last year. Let me try to go back to my file. I remember one was up in the Indiana, went on the Dairy side of the Chestnut Ridge, which has a long history of many, many Bigfoot sites. And a lot of these are very, very close range detailed reports. So there was one, and this would have been, I believe it was Mother's Day afternoon. And this person, I'm trying to find this report here, this person was walking her dogs, and she's walking along. She said all of a sudden all the nature sounds stopped. All the birds stopped chirping, and that's very common. We hear it from a lot of hunters and outdoorsmen that when these creatures are in the area, all the nature sounds stop. The birds don't chirp, the frogs aren't making any noise, the insects go quiet. And anyhow, she said suddenly the dogs suddenly began to whine and whimper, and they're standing still. She said suddenly here comes this huge creature out of the woods. Never looked at her. It was she's estimating, I've heard different estimates, probably at least 30, 40 feet away, not that far away. But she described this thing from head to toe. It was easily 7 to 8 foot tall, covered with long dark brown hair and black matted hair. The arms were longer than that of a human and hung down almost to the knees. She said the creature was about that estimate, and she said there was no sound or smell. And, you know, a lot of people, you hear these stories that every time they see a Bigfoot, they have these terrible, rotten smells.
Yeah.
That's not accurate. Yes, there are many cases where you have the smell, but there are many, many other reports where there's no odor whatsoever. And then there were other reports throughout the year. There was another case that Eric Altman from the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society and some of the other members, myself, went up May 13th. This is on Route 711 up in Fayette County. Fayette County, very active area along the ridge and around the ridge area for Bigfoot sightings, other phenomena. This guy was a very reputable witness, I can tell you. We went out to the location where he saw it. And he saw this thing, tall, dark figure run across the road to the left lane, approximately 100 yards ahead of him. He slowed down and watched as it slowly walked from the left to the right side of the road to the berm. And he got a really good look at this thing. And at one point, I can't remember exactly all the details. It was it was much bigger, much taller than a human. And it was right near a speed sign. And he said he could see the glowing red eyes of it right a little higher than that speed sign. So that sign was 11 feet in height. So that would have put that thing really, really tall, over 11 foot. And it's rare to get a sighting of one that big, but I've had some cases where we were able to get a pretty good measurement on height, and there was a couple cases where the couple of them may have been around 12 feet tall. Most of them range from about 6 to 9 feet tall with a lot of the reports, and we've had some reports of smaller ones around 4 to 5 feet tall.
That's awful. That's crazy.
And then I'll tell you about, and then there have been other reports all year about a really interesting case. This occurred this past November. So this would be up in Indiana County, where there have been reports for years as well. Lots of sightings up there, especially during that massive wave that I investigated with my teams back in 1973 and 74. And for the sighting up in Indiana County, I talked to the witness, I believe, within 2 hours after it happened. And this was up between the Indiana and Westmoreland County up on the Chestnut Ridge, where there have been reports for years, especially in the last couple of years from other people. And I understand that Eric Hoffman and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society have been getting other reports of activity up there as well in recent weeks and months. But this was early morning, just as the sun was coming up. And they lived deep in the woods, and she came out of a building on her property and noticed a movement at the corner of her eye. She looked at, I think it was about 80 feet away. She sees this. She said this thing easily was 9 feet tall, covered with grayish hair, and she said it was carrying a deer over its right shoulder. And she thinks she scared it because when it noticed her, it let out one loud grunt. And she said that the creature and her had eye contact for a short time, and the arms were very long, hung down to at least the knees. The ears were kind of human-like. There was gray hair on the face. There was no smell again, and it continued through the field into the woods and was gone. And they also mentioned, by the way, which is very common, that there was animal reactions both prior to and after the incident happened, where their animals did not act normally. They were very shaken. They didn't eat properly during the time of the incident. So that's just an example of what's going on.
Do you find that it's different in the morning, or is there more in the morning there is in the evening, or is it just vary?
It varies. And again, many sightings at daylight, different conditions. I get reports all year round. We've had reports in the winter. We've had a beautiful afternoons. We've had them during heavy rainstorms.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned a lot more about Bigfoot over the years I've been doing this. You know, when I started in this back years and years ago, I started investigating Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania back in the 1960s. And I had always thought that Bigfoot, from what I knew, from the people I interviewed and what I read, it was probably some type of unknown animal, some type of unknown primate. But as years went by, especially in the 1970s, when things began to really open up with the incidents, that we're dealing with something that's much, much stranger. And if you like, I'll go into that, but it's pretty detailed, but quite interesting.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there more women or more men? Is it equal? Like, would you say they have witnessed these or seen these?
You know, I really can't give you statistics. I can tell you men, women, and children have reported incidents from all backgrounds, all age groups, from all over the state. So, Southwest PA is very active. We're hearing a lot of activity even the last couple of years. Way up almost the New York PA border, up around the Allegheny National Forest, and other areas along there. We get reports from all across the state. But, and again, all type of weather conditions all year round, you get reports.
And what were you going to say?
Okay, so anyhow, if you'd like me, I'll tell you about what happened during 19.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us what you. Go ahead and tell us.
Okay, so anyhow, back in those days, in 1970, I had founded my first of 3 research groups. That was the Westmoreland County UFO Study Group, and I have to tell you this because it's part of the bigger story. And anyhow, I found that group. These are all volunteer groups, and that group was kind of unique in that most people involved were specialists. We had all types of scientists and engineers and technicians. We had police officers, former military people, and we all volunteer our time around our full-time jobs to do the research. And we started in the Pittsburgh area. By 1973, we had extended to cover the state of Pennsylvania. And we were just being jammed with reports. And we were really surprised that we were getting reports from the news media, from law enforcement, and reports are coming in on quite a regular basis. So we were really lucky that we were set up. Because 1973 comes around, and first we had the biggest UFO wave ever documented. And this was covered a lot. You got to remember, 1973, well, there wasn't cell phones back then. Internet was nothing like it is today. It was just getting started. And so a lot of the local papers and the statewide papers, even the national papers, were picking up a lot of these reports. And there were hundreds and hundreds of UFO reports coming in. And of course, yeah, we were able to explain a lot of the cases. There were misidentifications, but there were many, many very detailed reports, and they were not just lights in the sky. These were large, what appeared to be large, solid objects. In many cases, low to the ground, following vehicles, hovering over highways, or incidents on the turnpike, or incidents all through the Pittsburgh area. And it was just amazing what we were dealing with. And so we were just really, really busy just trying to keep up with all these UFO cases. Then in the summer of 1973 is when things got really interesting. That's when we had the biggest outbreak of Bigfoot sightings ever documented. That continued to some of 1974. And many of those Bigfoot sightings were in daylight, many of them at very, very close range. So we're talking, in some cases, 5, 10, 20 feet away from witnesses. In some cases, more than one creature seen together. So back when these things are going on, very commonly, my teams would be on the scene of an incident within minutes and hours after they occurred, and all type of weather conditions. And at that time period, when things were just starting, I thought we're dealing with some type of unknown animal. We just don't know what we're dealing with yet. But then things began to get very, very strange. And you got to remember again, people didn't have any way to communicate like they do today. And they didn't know what other people were reporting. And for example, we would be on the scene of some of these cases in different type of ground conditions. And we see these large, unusual footprints with very large strides between them that would go for a distance and then just suddenly stop. But there should have been more tracks. That also occurred in the snow. And by the way, that's still occurring in recent years, and not only in PA, around the country. And we're all scratching our heads like, there's no way that this could be fabricated. Like, where did these tracks go? Or where did the thing go that made the tracks? And then things got even stranger and stranger as reports were coming in. Then we began to see a pattern. We have a UFO sighting in a particular area. Within minutes, hours, and days later, we'd have a Bigfoot sighting or vice versa. And then we had some of these amazing cases with Bigfoot and UFOs seen together at the same time and place. Now, if you want me to go into detail, I can tell you some really interesting cases. It'll take a little bit of time. But if I'm going to tell you about it, here's something you need to be advised for your listeners. I am not suggesting that Bigfoot is a passenger in a spaceship from another planet, because we don't even know for sure what we're dealing with. I say years and years ago, it's very possible we're dealing with more than one origin to the unknown category of the UFO phenomena. That it's possible that maybe a small number of these reports might be extraterrestrial, but I've seen more and more data now. And there's a lot of cases going on. I wrote about these in the 70s, and now all over the country, you're hearing similar cases that we're dealing with a phenomenon, both with certain new types of UFOs and with Bigfoot, maybe other cryptids that have a physical and a non-physical component to it. That these things, they're suddenly here and they're gone, you hear and they're gone, they can leave evidence and they're gone. That's why there's no bodies. And even with many of these UFO reports we're getting for years, even in daylight, we sometimes have large solid objects that just suddenly appear out of nowhere. Sometimes it's just hovering and they slowly begin to fade away and disappear. In some cases, they physically change one form into another. There's a lot more to this than any of us understand.
If you're just joining us, we have Stan Gordan from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, reporting on some unusual activity that's been happening for the past year. So if you have a question for him, please put it in the comment. Stan, go ahead and tell us some of your different cases.
Well, what really convinced me, and I'll tell you two cases. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version because they're long and they're very involved. I wrote about these in my Silent Invasion book in great detail. But anyhow, here's what happened. Here was a case among others that really stands out. It's a pretty famous case. This is October 25th, 1973. I remember it very, very well because it was so unusual. And there have been many UFO reports coming in on my hotline from around the state during that 24-hour period. It was about 10:30 that night that I get a call from a state trooper from the Uniontown Barracks up in Fayette County. He had just returned from investigating this multiple witness UFO landing up there, and he said to me, there's a good chance there's something still up on the farm. Can you get one of your teams up here right away? So we did. It was already late at night. We got one of our teams together. We've got our radiation monitors. We've got our radios and other equipment. We found our way up to that remote area in Fayette County. What we found out was about 9 o'clock that night, 15 witnesses observed this barn-sized red ball about 100 feet off the ground, hovering and slowly beginning to move downward. And it was the farmer's son, who was the adult in this story, that was coming out to visit his family out there in Fayette County. And as he's coming down the farm road, he sees this object in the sky and people standing outside watching this thing, so he slows down. And then he goes to a neighbor's house, which is a better location, get a better view of the pasture area, the farm his dad had out there. And it looks like this large round sphere is going to land on his dad's farm. So he and these two young neighbor boys are also watching this. They decide they want to go up and see what this thing is. So before going up to the field, they stop over at his dad's farm, and the son, the older fella, grabs a 30-06 and a handful of ammunition. And as they're heading down the farm road, dogs around the area are carrying on. They hear these high-pitched whining noises and these baby crying sounds. And the fellow didn't realize, but in a handful of ammunition, he had 2 tracer bullets. So the guys out there that hunt, they know that when you fire those tracer bullets, you just get that luminous trajectory as you fire it. Anyhow, as they're getting closer to that area, again, all these sounds are getting louder and louder. They make their way up to the pasture. And when they get up there, they carefully, what they're seeing about 250 feet away is this huge, maybe 100-foot diameter object on the ground right above it. But it's not a complete sphere now. It's like a half a sphere. It's a big white dome that's illuminating the whole area, making that loud whirling sound. Anyhow, they're standing there watching this thing, and then their eyes are focused on, the attention is drawn to a barbed wire fence about 75 feet away. And along that barbed wire fence are these 2 huge air-covered creatures walking upright, moving slowly in their direction. Very typical, like a typical Bigfoot report. These things are covered with long, dark, I believe, kind of grayish, brownish hair. And the arms are so long, they're down past the knees, almost to the ground. They have no neck. They have large, luminous green eyes, about as big as a 50-cent piece. And they're making this whiny, crying noise. And one young boy is so frightened he ran out of the field. The other boy starts yelling at the adult, "Shoot at him, shoot him." He takes his first shot. His first shot was a tracer. He fired over their head. There was no response. But when he fires that second tracer, the largest of the 2 creatures, the one in front was the biggest. It's about 8 feet tall. The one behind it's about 7 feet tall. They're slowly moving along the fence line. When he fires that second tracer, the largest creature makes a loud crying, whining noise, reaches out and says to grab that tracer. And when he does that, that huge glowing object in the field vanishes and is gone. It doesn't take off. It just disappears. Most of the luminosity is gone. The sound stops. The creatures turn around, so I start walking back along the fence line towards the woods. At that point, he's using live ammo from his 30-06 firing into these creatures with no effect on it whatsoever. They run back to their truck, go back to their farmhouse, told the family what happened, goes to the neighbors, called the state police. Short part of the story is, trooper arrives 45 minutes later. They go up in the police car. They're looking for evidence. And the trooper told me when he got on the scene, the area where the object was on the ground was self-luminescent glowing, about 100 feet or more in diameter. He said he shined his flashlight beam into it. He could barely see it. He said he noticed the farm animals stayed away from the area. And he told me, he said, if I had a newspaper, I'm pretty certain I could read the newspaper from the light coming off the glow. I was told that they went back to the state police barracks, but the trooper and the witness were taken to 2 separate rooms. They were separately interviewed, then they called me to set up my team. That's the short part of the story. It got even stranger and stranger. Don't have time to get into it. But that was the case among numerous other ones that indicated we're dealing with something that's much, much stranger than an unknown animal. And then if you want to hear about the case that convinced me that we're dealing with a creature that is not flesh and blood, for a lack of a better term, I'll call it interdimensional. And I've seen a lot more of this now in cases even in recent years with not only Bigfoot, but with other cryptids as well. I'll be glad to tell you the story.
Good. Do it. Tell us.
Okay, so this is the case. This is way up in the mountains, up in the, not far from Ohio, in that general area. So here's the woman. It's February 6, 1974. This woman lived in the woods all her life. She had a nice little cabin home. She knew the animals well. She was a good shot. And anyhow, she's sitting in her home that evening. I should tell you a little more history, because some of your listeners will probably remember this time period. There was a big national trucker strike going on at the time. Excuse me. It was gas rationing. So a lot of people remember it was gas rationing. I couldn't get up to the scene the next morning because I couldn't get gas here in Greensburg. Anyhow, because of what was happening and the violence on the highways around the country, the state police and the National Guard of Pennsylvania were patrolling together. So you had some members of both units that responded to this incident. Anyhow, the woman sitting there as normal that evening watching TV, she hears this commotion on her little front porch. She had some empty soda cans out there, some empty pop cans. Somebody was knocking the pop cans around. So I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before that a pack of wild dogs had come through, and she thought, I bet those dogs are back again. I'll just grab my 16-gauge double-barrel shotgun, and I'll load one chamber, and I'll shoot over the head, and I'll scare those dogs away, which is what she attempted to do. So she loads her shotgun, and she starts walking up to the front door. She opens the door, turns on the switch for the front light, steps out, but there's no dogs. 6 feet in front of her is a 7-foot-tall, huge, hairy Bigfoot type creature. As soon as the lights went on, it raised its arm straight up over its head.
Oh, wow.
What did she do? She pulled the trigger and fired right into it. She said there's this bright flash of light, like a flash on a camera, and that creature vanished and disappeared right in front of her.
She's pretty brave, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But what happened was her in-laws lived 100 feet away. They heard the gunshot. They called out what she was shooting at. So her son-in-law grabs his sidearm, starts walking down that dark road, and at some point, he reportedly saw 4 or 5 hairy people with eyes like coals of fire, started shooting at him randomly. And it was around that time that they saw this large glowing luminous object. They said like a big Christmas ornament hovering over the trees at the same time. That's when they called the state police for help. And so anyhow, like I said, I couldn't get up to the scene the next morning, but I talked to the primary investigator, and he said he believed the witnesses were very honest, they were very shaken, they were very emotional, but he said something very strange happened up there. That he based on the reaction of the animals on the scene. And I think I mentioned that earlier, and there are many, many cases where the animals, especially even the most vicious dogs, when they're in close proximity to these creatures, they generally don't bark, they don't move, they shake, they cower. Sometimes they don't eat right for 2 or 3 days later. That's very common. He told me when he got to the scene, the dogs would not bark. They had several big dogs, but other animals, the dogs would not move. They wouldn't make a sound. I remember him telling me one of the dogs was in a cage. I think it was Spitz. And he tried to force that, get the dog out. The dog wouldn't move. The dog should have bit his arm off. The dog wouldn't make a sound or move. The next morning when I got on the scene with my between that phenomena and some of the Bigfoot and cryptid cases as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like interdimensional. And I think there's a lot of it happening all over the place. Like I was driving down in Westmoreland County, and it was just yesterday. The sky was beautiful, clear, no clouds. It was beautiful, bright blue. I saw this silver object in the sky, pretty big, and then it disappeared. Like, where did it go? There was no clouds. So explain to me that one, Stan.
Well, when you're done or when you get a chance, give me a call. I'd like to talk to you more about it because I've been getting reports in the last few weeks. We're having more of these small worm incidents in the last week. We've had an outbreak of some Bigfoot sightings up in northern part of Pennsylvania the last week. I've interviewed 2 witnesses during the last week, 2 separate cases where they had a Bigfoot sighting in daylight. So things are happening again.
Let me ask you something. There's been a lot of reports lately on, even Tucker Carlson had it on, mentioning the Project Bluebeam, that the government or somebody, some site box is doing this to put this fake UFO invasion to try to control us or make us rely more on the government to help us. Like, oh, we'll protect you from this, whatever's going on. What do you think about Project Blue Book?
Are you talking about Project Blue Book now?
I mean, Project Bluebeam, excuse me.
Okay, well, you hear all kind of theories out there. You hear all kind of stories out there. I don't know that much about it. I've heard all kind of theories out there. All I can tell you is what I've been dealing with personally over the years. These are very good reports of something we cannot easily explain away. And like I said, I don't have the answers. I don't think anybody does. I think the government has always known more than the public, but I truly believe they do not have the answers themselves. And I think, again, we're dealing with a phenomenon that is so beyond our present understanding, scientific understanding right now. I said years ago, the phenomenon is so strange, it protects itself. It is so unusual. It is so strange. It's when you deal with so many witnesses, and these witnesses will tell you, they come from all walks of life, that they would never possibly could have believed these things could occur or be around here unless they thought themselves. And for so many people, it's a life-changing experience.
Yes, it is a life-changing experience. I mean, I've seen some things happening in the woods up here. When I first moved up to this area, way back before there was a lot of home developments and the sky was open and there was a lot of woods. I mean, I've seen some stuff in the sky that one of them, I'm not kidding you, it wasn't that long ago. I swear my dog noticed it too. It just came out of nowhere. It looked like it was coming right up to me in the sky, but then it stopped and disappeared. And there was a woman in Murraysville, Pennsylvania, that has said that there's a lot of shape-shifting crafts that would shape or morph into, it looks like a helicopter, and all of a sudden it changes and it disappears. And they're usually by some kind of a mineral, like a coal mine, or this was near an abandoned coal mine. And I don't know what they would be using coal for, because if they're advanced, technology, why would they need coal? So it's kind of bizarre to me. Like, why would they even go around trying to get some kind of a natural resource when they're so advanced? Why would they even need that?
Well, I can tell you one, there have been reports of sightings for years all around Murraysville and Trafford and Export, all through the Delmont, a lot of reports for years, all kind of activity. The pattern I found many years ago, and it's continuing to show up, is that many low-level, close-range UFO encounters, and many encounters with Bigfoot and other cryptids. So when we use the term cryptids, we're talking about creatures such as Bigfoot, which the public and people report seeing, but which science has never confirmed existing. They commonly occur in the vicinity of high-energy sources. So you have many sightings around high-tension power lines and power plants and radio towers, cell phone towers, gas wells, gas lines, bodies of water, railroad tracks. I can go on and on and on. That's very, very common. Now, I can tell you this. Back in the 70s, when all these sightings were going on, if we had a Bigfoot sighting around a cave or a mine, in some cases, we went into those caves or mines, and we saw no evidence that these things were staying in there. They may have got in there temporarily, but we never found any evidence they were staying in there. And I don't think that's the case. No. I think we're dealing with something that I don't understand. I don't think anybody understands that these things, under certain conditions, they come in and out of our physical reality. They can leave evidence, and they're gone.
I agree with you. I think they're trying to make themselves present now and visible for some reason, more so than ever. But then it gets me to the point where maybe, how do I know these are legit? They're not CGI, or like I said before, Blue Beam. How do we know it's not some kind of a computer generated image and not the real thing? Like, how do you know?
And again, we may be doing more than one thing, but I can tell you there is various types of sometimes physical effects being reported, different types of electromagnetic effects being reported. There's been a lot of cases more and more in recent years, and I can give you some examples of both with UFOs and even with cryptids, where people have good quality equipment, good phone cameras, night vision equipment, other type of equipment that's fully charged and everything's working properly. And when they go to try to take a picture, the camera fails, it malfunctions, or the batteries completely lose all their current, all their power instantly. That's been reported more and more. I'll give you just one example of many I can give you. But this was 6-7 years ago. I can't remember exactly now. This was up towards Dargo. Beautiful, beautiful morning. This fellow was sitting by his window. His dog was laying on the carpet next to him. He's sitting there drinking coffee. It was a beautiful morning. Suddenly it gets jet blackout. Just like a terrible storm. And he's like, what is going on here? He grabs his fully charged telephone and he calls his dog, but his dog, which goes with him everywhere, refuses to move or would not go outside. The guy walks out to his driveway on his property, and about 500 feet above him is this huge, solid, black, silent, triangular object just hovering there.
That would be crazy.
He grabs his phone to take a picture
Definitely.
of it. The battery is completely drained of power. And there was other EM effects on the property as well. That's just one example.
That's something. Well, I know there's a lot of people who have seen these lights in the sky. They feel sick afterwards. Like, I know a family and they run a metal recycling in Jeanette, PA, Grapeville.
Mm-hmm.
And they seen something in the sky. The whole family was ill the next day. Like, felt like they were drained. They didn't feel good. They slept a lot.
Okay. And if you remember, we talked about earlier, we talked about those two fairly recent cases where people were within feet at low level of these small spheres of light, and they got very, very tired. Okay, so you got this physiological effect. We've had these other reports in the last year of people that close to low-level large objects, and they've had some type of like electrical static charge. We're getting a lot of reports of electromagnetic interference from different cases being reported. So there are different effects going on with these things. There don't appear to be serious effects. If the people at Jeanette want to contact me, I'd like to know more about their case. And anybody out there that has any sightings recently in the past, they can reach me as well.
Yeah, I do believe that was one of my first cases. This is a while ago, but I just talked to the woman not too long ago. She reported it to MUFON, and they didn't do anything. They just kind of blew her off. So I can try to contact her to see if she'll be interested in talking to you. Wouldn't hurt.
Incidents around Jeanette, Grapeville, that whole area along Rodabar Road where a lot of the incidents were happening, especially in 73, but many since then. There's a lot of stuff. So much of this stuff is going on, but the public doesn't hear it because 99.9% of people see things don't want any publicity.
Yeah.
And I get calls from people from all walks of life. I mean, engineers, scientists, school teachers, police officers, pilots, and all kind of people I've interviewed over the years, and they want no publicity. But what's so interesting when I interview all these people is that a lot of them give me very similar details. And what's really fascinating is many times people will confirm other people's local sightings without them knowing it, because I had other reports on the same day around the same time, something similar.
Exactly. I'm not sure. I know it's so common now to hear about it on the news. It's all they're talking about. UFOs in the sky. What are these objects? Is it real? Are they Russian, Chinese? I mean, are they alien? But the alien tech. First of all, an alien technology like what's going on would not let themselves be shot down.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I think if I recall, one of the power reports, I think it was probably the incident happened February 12th over Lake Huron, Michigan, that they reported like strings hanging down from whatever the object was. And I don't think any advanced intelligence would have strings on their vehicle wherever they come from.
No. And most of these are just wind, guided. So, but then the ones that the military did see, the Tic Tacs that were, they were real. I mean, but.
And those are similar to many of the sightings we've had in Pennsylvania for years and years, but a lot of people call more cigar-shaped type things or more elongated objects. And we've had many, many cases. There have been so many reports in the greater Pittsburgh area for years and years that most people don't even know about.
Yeah.
Well, I can give you a couple examples if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
And so I'll go back to the years August of 1986, 8:30 in the morning. People report this large cigar-shaped object with a silver surface hovering over some trees behind the Monroeville Mall. As they're watching it, it moves towards the mall and hovers about 200 feet over the roof of the mall. It was moving over different sections of different businesses in that area, including over the air conditioning unit. The object made no sound. They said it was about the size of 3 school buses in length, and one witness said it was so bright it hurt her eyes to look at it. May of 1989, Squirrel Hill, suburb of Pittsburgh, around 3 o'clock in the morning. 2 people coming out of a restaurant. They're riding down the street. At the intersection of Beacon and Whitman, they see this, what they thought at first was a big blimp, but they realized this cylindrical object had no gondola. It was more elongated than a blimp. It was completely all luminous, bright white. There were lights on in different areas. It was completely silent. Just hovering there. They could see like indentations in the surface of it. It hovered there for several minutes, and then after about 3 or 4 minutes, it just suddenly vanished. And they actually made the police report on it. Let me think of another one. 1995, early morning hours, people reported an object over the Homestead High-Level Bridge. Said it was larger than a blimp, covered with hundreds of light colors of eye, kind of a purple, blue, and pinkish red. It hovered over the bridge for a minute, then ascended to the sky at a high rate of speed and out of sight. That's just an example of just a few of the reports.
Yeah, it's a lot of different ones. Do you want to say something, Sean? Did you have a question?
I'm just fascinated, Jen. Every time he comes on, I learn more. So the only thing I'm going to have to do when it gets warmer, since I retired from ghost hunting, is just start going out and up that way, Chestnut Hill and other places, and sit out in the field. I'm being honest with you when I say this, and just sit out there and see what the hell's out there.
Yeah. Stan, did you get a chance to watch the Missing 411 Hunted, the last part of the show, when the woman who was married to Sean?
He's a farmer.
No, he wasn't a farmer.
Or...
He was the real smart man. His wife was hunting in the trees.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
When you were talking about interdimensional beings, she saw this weird shape. The trees transformed into some almost like I can't even describe what they said.
It's called cloaking, Jen.
Cloaking. Yeah. Did you happen to see that?
I have not, but I can tell you again, I'm finding out a lot more about a lot of this stuff going on. I'm telling you, whatever we're dealing with, it is so beyond our understanding that whatever it is, at times it can manipulate the thought processes of some of the witnesses that seem temporarily. There's different effects being reported, that it can manipulate the environment and the surroundings. In my new book, Creepy Cryptids, there's some really amazing cases in there, the things that people never heard about before, and really weird creature cases. But, for example, one witness, we're talking about Black Panther sightings in Pennsylvania. Now, we're not talking about cougars and mountain lions. We're talking about an animal that you would see in the zoo, typically a black leopard or black jaguar. But these reports of these out-of-place animals are being seen around not only Pennsylvania, but around the country for years in areas where they should not be. But I've also found some very interesting connections between the Bigfoot phenomenon and the Black one case, I've had cases of Bigfoot that, sometimes they're physically solid, sometimes they're not always completely physically solid. Sometimes they're more misty looking, foggy looking. Sometimes part of the body is solid, other times they are not. And again, you got the tracks that just suddenly stop when there should have been more tracks. There's a lot more of this that meets the eye, including reports that in areas where you have a lot of history of Bigfoot sightings, witnesses and investigators are seeing these small spheres of light in those same areas, and there's a connection with that as well. But with the Black Panther reports, sometimes when you have an outbreak of Bigfoot sightings in a certain area and other phenomena is occurring, sometimes another cryptid is reported by the locals. And for example, in one very big case that went, 1979, 1981, 82 on the Pennsylvania-Armstrong County border, there was a lot of activity down in that area. And the locals reporting not only Bigfoot activity and the small orbs of light, other phenomena, they're reporting a number of sightings of Black Panthers as well. And if you have a minute, I'll tell you a very strange case I investigated in 1983 that led me to believe that there's more to the Black Panther reports too.
No, go right ahead.
Of an animal.
Go right ahead, Stan.
This is February, it's in my memory, it's February 1983. Fellow was coming home, it was late at night, around 1 o'clock in the morning, his car's overheating, it was very cold. He pulls into the driveway, and he goes in to get a can of antifreeze. He goes back, he starts putting antifreeze in the car. A few minutes later, he hears this loud growl. He turns around, and I think about 20 feet away, there's this large black house cat sitting there, growling at him. Well, he didn't think much about it because he's out in the country, and there's cats all over the place. So he goes back to putting more antifreeze in the car. A couple of minutes later, he hears a louder growl, and he turns around to look, and that large house cat has now visibly grown to twice its size, and it's growling at him ferociously. So he throws that can at it, and the thing growls at him, and it starts walking outside where it's well illuminated, and he runs into the house to try to find his pistol. When he comes back out, the creature's outside, and he said, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. What I saw at first was a small cat, now has fully grown to an animal I would see in a zoo, like a black panther, with a long, thick tail, glowing, luminous yellow eyes that's growling at me. He said, I took a shot at it. I don't know if I hit it, but moments later, it physically just vanished right in front of me and was gone.
Huh.
That's crazy.
What do you think, Sean? Now, how do you know some of these people aren't just nuts? Okay.
Well, you have to interview so many thousands of people, and you see the patterns, and you get the little details, and you see the emotion. I mean, in the last 6-7 years, I was doing live interviews with face-to-face, I should say, with some hunters and outdoorsmen. Some of these guys have been out in the woods for years, and they have tears coming out of their eyes. You can see the emotion in them, how they loved the woods, how they lived in the woods all their life, and now they're afraid to go out in the woods anymore after what they saw. I mean, you can tell when you interview so many people, the little details, when you question them, the location, the similarities, the patterns. Yeah, you can generally tell if somebody's putting you on or not. And so many of these people I've got to meet, and some people got to know some of them very well over many, many years, some of their families, and you just know that something happened to them that they were affected by.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to people who have seen these things, but there are some that are not all there. I mean, you have to admit there are some people who can make us.
There's my friend Anthony's in the comment section, and
Many overt hoaxes. We get a lot of misidentifications. Even with Bigfoot, there's a misidentification of large shaggy dogs, there's been hunters in camouflage outfits that look very strange. There have been bear sightings of people mistaken for a Bigfoot. So there's a lot of things they're not overt hoaxes, just misidentifications.
wow, my friend Anthony in the comment section, I had him on my show Into the Night with Sean Kelly, and he has the paranormal group. Correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony. The Texas Wraith investigators, paranormal investigators, and what he's talking about, what's happening in the forest, is similar to what is happening to some people who are witnessing UFOs and Bigfoots and stuff like that here in Pennsylvania. The Texas Wraith Hunters is what they're called.
Yeah, and it's going on all over the country. And it's not just my research. I've been in touch with many other researchers out there. You have people like Nick Redfern, David Pilates has had cases reported. You have many, many others I've been in touch with around the country for years are having these reports back. I can't remember now, maybe 10, 11 years ago, I gave a lecture out in Oregon on this type of reports. And that's an area that's very, very thick with lore of Bigfoot. And I wasn't sure how they would respond when I gave a lecture on this, and I was amazed. I had a very, very positive response. A lot of the researchers and others contacted me afterwards and said, "We're so glad you talked about this." They said, "This has been going on out here for years. We have the tracks that vanished. We have the balls of light. We have the UFO Bigfoot connection. This has been going on for years and years." And one thing I found back in the 70s when I started writing about these cases, I was in touch with a lot of the well-known names in the Bigfoot field in the United States and around the world. And I talked to a lot of these people about it, and they were aware of it. They were getting reports, but many of them told me that they were not going to write about it. They were not going to get involved, and they didn't want to be laughed at by their fellow researchers, so they were just not going to talk about it. My position was I didn't have the answers. These cases are well documented. I don't know what we're dealing with, but it's important to get this out, and hopefully it'll influence other witnesses and researchers to talk about it.
There you go.
It's just fascinating and it's interesting. Okay, Stan, real quick. So I retired from from paranormal hunt investigating, and if I wanted to go out, to see about UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever, any cryptids, is there things that I need to take with me to protect myself, or is there any kind of equipment that I would have to use just in case I want to do it, and maybe some of our listeners who would want to go out and do it?
Well, there's a lot involved. It was lucky that I had the kind of research specialist I had in my group for years, because we had all kind of scientists and engineers, and we did training programs. We learned how to make casting. We learned how to gather samples. We learned how to work the equipment. Some of my guys were actually trained by the Civil Defense to be radiological monitors during the 60s, late 60s. Was that time period, but it was 1970 that we started the first group. A lot of them guys were trained to use radiation equipment properly. And again, it varies. But I mean, it's good to have, sampling equipment. We had some labs back over the years that did analysis for us. So we got any kind of unusual samples, which on a rare basis that may have turned up. And so again, it's good to learn what you can about animals, tracking, how to gather samples. If you get something interesting, and make sure you get the samples prepared and properly stored. There's just a lot to know about it. And we take out various type of equipment. We have radiation survey meters. We have electro-EM equipment, detectors, check electromagnetic fields and magnetic fields in the area. So there's a lot of different things you can do. If you were involved in ghost hunting or whatever, some of those fellas had some equipment too, but there's some equipment that's a little better than others. So you need to do some research and learn how to use the equipment properly.
Okay.
That's good. It's good talk.
maybe me and Jen will go out there. We'll bring Ava with us so she can scare the cryptids.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll go out and look for a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Ava. She'd probably be scared and hide. So, but we're gonna take a real quick break. I mentioned Carnation. Thank you, Carnation, for sponsoring the second hour of Chasing Prophecy Radio on FM 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. There's so many things we could talk about tonight. So many things that's happening out there. I personally do not want to come in contact with any of these cryptic creatures or orbs. I mean, I had it like I had an experience, oh my God, a long time ago with a green type of light. So going outside at night, especially in the summer, is kind of, I don't know if you want to do that now unless you have some protection because especially with the parks, camping and everything, I don't think I want to go to a
Ah,
national park anymore.
Michael called it right there, and he's true, and he's right. If you're chosen, it will happen. I truly believe that 100%.
Well, how do you know? You mean if you see something,
Yeah, Michael, how do you know if you're? I mean, can you explain to Jenny what you mean by that? But I know what you're talking about, Mike.
I mean, if I've seen a lot of things outside at night, I've seen things in my house. I've seen a lot of things that I can't explain, but how do you know it's just not a figment of your imagination? I mean, I can see in the sky. I can see things. I mean,
He says
if
you will
you
know.
you will know.
What do you think, Stan? What do you think?
Well, it's something I've looked into over the years, and we just don't have enough data on it. But one thing I found years and years ago, things are showing up is it possible that certain people have certain abilities that they're able to perceive and experience things that not everybody else can, that they're able to perceive it. And I'll give you an example. I remember years ago, there was an incident where there was a group of people outside, and only a couple people could see this large object hovering nearby, and the other people couldn't see it. So do certain people have certain abilities, they're able to perceive these things, or could it be that the phenomena itself is attracted to some people, they have certain abilities?
That I agree with you 100%, Stan. I mean, all I know is when I had that near-death experience where I died, whatever you all want to call it just seems like when I came back, my my senses became more heightened. Do you know what I mean? Um, Started to see things, hear things, and feel things that weren't there. So I truly believe that, and I truly believe what Michael has to say too on it.
Well, here's what I found. There's kind of two categories of a lot of these incidents. One, almost anybody can be at the right place at the right time and have a UFO sighting or see a Bigfoot maybe right out in front of her car. We get a lot of sporadic reports. But then there's a second group of individuals. And some of these people I've been in touch with maybe 30 or 40 years or more. I remember one person, I talked to this person the other day. I probably have known her now for, oh my God, well over 40 years. And she was a little girl here in Westmoreland County that was missing. There was a search for her. They searched for hours. They found her standing in the middle of the field that they had already gone through more than once, I believe. And throughout, she had a missing time experience. Throughout her life, from the time she was young, she had paranormal experiences. Later in life, she had Bigfoot encounters, but sometimes other people were with her. She had UFO encounters, all kind of phenomena. Then, as time went on, her children began to experience it, and now her grandchildren. And I found this in other cases as well. Some of these people, and I have quite a lot of these people, call me and think they're the only ones like that, and yet they're so similar. I've always said, if I could get 10 of these people who don't know each other and tell them to write down, let's say, 10 different experiences from the time they were very young, you would be amazed at the similarities of these accounts.
Wow. There you go. Sean, you back?
Yeah, I got a call from the producer.
Did you hear what he said?
No, I didn't. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm starting to think that some of these people, I mean, I believe what's going on is happening. Problem I have is I don't trust our government or the military, and I don't know if they're making these things up. And that's my problem.
Well, see, here's what's going on. What I'm thinking right now, all of a sudden you have all that crap going on in the government with Biden and all that crap going on there. And then you had that trade derailment over in East Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did they do? They called it a control fire, whatever it was, to release those toxic gases out.
Mhm.
So, that happened, right? And so I think by throwing all this UFO crap out there in the media, it's like deflecting off
Yeah,
the
it's
train.
deflecting. It's like, what do you call that when they do that on purpose? Like a
I
false
call it
flag.
deflecting. And look at all the other stuff. I mean, come on, a control explosion. I mean, control.
And that
And
was
here-
it was poison.
Yeah.
It was poison. It's deadly on contact. Look at all the
So-
animals that have died. And
so
they
it
didn't have
was-
and they didn't have any of that on no one was reporting it. And
No.
all they're reporting is these UFOs. They were trying to get they were distracting us. So we didn't talk about it. The news did not report it at all. And that's big. I mean, the water was contaminated. They were evacuated.
That was
and-
100 miles from the place.
Yeah, it's very
train wreck.
close to the Pittsburgh. Yeah,
Beaver County.
very
Beaver County.
yes, it's very close to Beaver County. It's scary. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know who
like-
we can trust.
There's just so much crap going on right now that some of the stuff, I honestly believe they just blew up. They just fired up balloons, man. That's it. They did.
Yeah,
That's it. Here's the way I look at it, right? So the first one they shut down, all right, China knows where in the hell our bases are at. They know how many people we got. You know what I mean? They know it all. Okay, they know it all. And it's just a distraction. I don't know.
Stan's quiet.
Just listening to your comments, everybody, we just don't know the facts, and we don't know really what's going on, and hopefully we will. But again, over the years and historically, you have a lot of unusual events happen, and are these things always coincidences or reasons for it? We just don't know.
Yeah, it's like Michael Anthony said, it's all connected somehow. But Stan, it was really great having you on the show tonight. We'll have you on and report back to us if you have any other
Yes, Stan, thank
any
you.
reporting to do.
Okay, well, listen, if your listeners are interested, they go to my website. It's stangordon.info, I-N-F-O. They can keep up with some of the activities. A really detailed report about a lot of what we were talking about on the show tonight. And also, I have a lot of events and different conferences I'll be speaking at this year all through Pennsylvania and other areas. They can go there and look under upcoming events. And let me think what else. Anyhow, my phone number is on there. If they want to reach me, it's 724-838-7768. Or email all this on my website, too. It's PAUFO@Comcast.net. And my books are all available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. The latest book out is called Creepy Cryptids and Strange UFO Encounters in Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of very, very strange incidents from all over our area, around the Pittsburgh area.
Well, there you have it, folks. Well, thanks again for joining us, Stan. You have a great night.
Thank you, Stan.
Have a good evening.
You too. Very interesting. Very interesting. There's always something to talk about when he comes on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy what he tells us about his research, about his clients that he has worked with, and I'm impressed with him.
Yeah, I am too. I'm going to play. Go ahead.
But what bothers me a little bit is that most of the cases were back in the 70s, okay? And I was a wee one back then, and so how come none of that good stuff that happened back in the 70s is not happening right now?
Well, what about in the 50s when the alien ships flew over the White House? I mean, come on, we've been talking about this stuff forever. It seems like, I think it's a fake alien invasion. Sorry. They want to do this to control us for the New World Order. I mean, they're doing something and I don't like it. And I wish my microphone would stay in one place instead of playing around. It keeps going up and down and I don't like it. So I'm going to play a little TikTok video. I don't recommend using TikTok, but I use it sometimes to gather some information because it seems like you can't find any of this stuff hardly at all on YouTube. So TikTok is a place to go where they don't seem to monitor it so much, but I'm going to try to find it. So give me a...
Hey, Michael, what's China's pink house?
What?
Yeah, China's pink house. Michael's smart dude, man. I mean we were talking. I don't know. That was pretty interesting there. Why do you think the government doesn't want to allow it, Jen?
What do you say?
Like our White House, very, very much the same, and they had the same experience. Oh, okay. All right. The pink house is just like what happened at our White House with the UFOs falling over, flying over them.
What did he say? Sean, I didn't hear him. What did you say?
He's referring to Tic Tacs. I don't know.
Looks like the
I
White House
hopefully
is
we
very-
can get him on our show. He's pretty.
Yeah, it would be great. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this. Give me a second.
So it looks like we're about to see the start of the next PSYOP, guys. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled by all the reports that you're seeing of alien sightings, UFO sightings, jets being scrambled. This is all another PSYOP. It's another part of the movie that they're showing us in order to shoehorn us into doing things that we wouldn't normally want to do. So governments can play the savior in this fake alien invasion, but in order for them to do that, there will have to be more restrictions on our freedoms, probably a digital currency and a social credit score as well. They're getting desperate now, and they're using all kinds of tactics.
I totally
Project
agree.
Bluebeam, go and research it. This has been known for many years from alternative researchers that they're going to do this. So don't be fooled by all the UFO BS that you're going to see in the next few months.
I totally agree with that, and I also have this to listen to because it's just as bad. It was when they had the press conference with the Pentagon during the Super Bowl, which blew my mind. That kind of blew my mind.
Did they really?
Yeah, which was stupid. Because no one watched it. I probably don't have it anymore. Well, I think I shared it. I think I shared it in our chat. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I don't buy a lot of this stuff I'm seeing. I just don't. Just don't do it. Don't buy it. Okay,
I don't know. You okay there, Jen? You all right, buddy?
Huh?
You okay? You're just like going out there. You being possessed by aliens or something like
What are you
that?
talking about? I'm looking
You're
for
just-
stuff on the. Can you
Oh, is
hear
that
me
what
or
you're-
what?
Yeah, I can hear just like.
I'm searching on our Facebook stuff. I
Oh,
sent you the
okay.
link. What did you think I was doing?
So everybody out there who is listening to the show or who's in the chat room, what did you think of our guest Stan Gordan? I would like to hear your opinions. That would be great. Me and Jenny would. Michael says, I kind of like being the third wheel here. That's okay, Mike. We need you to come on the show, pal. That would be cool. And just hear your stuff. So it's just like, I just think this is Project Bluebeam over and over and over again. It's just too scary, and for me, I just came to the conclusion with all this crap that's happening out there in the world right now. Okay. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I have no control over it. So if the world ends tomorrow, then it ends tomorrow. I don't know. And that's how I feel. I can't dwell on something like this because all it will do is give me ulcers. It will give me headaches and migraines. I can't deal with it.
I'm going to go ahead and play this, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Let me just make sure it shares it. You can see that all right?
Yeah, it's a balloon.
That is what everyone is asking us right now.
Oops.
It's a balloon.
No, it's not a balloon.
Hi,
You
thanks,
hear that?
Pat, and thanks for doing this. This
Yeah.
is General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials?
Pentagon.
And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
And it stopped. Why?
It's it's the government, Jen. They're listening in on our show, and it happens, and you know it happens. It's happened many a times.
Why
Whenever we talk sensitive stuff, everybody, you know, we either lose connection or else there's a lot of static on our computers, you know, that won't allow us to continue to talk about what we're talking about. You know that, Jen.
Thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat, potential threat, unknown, that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything. At this point, we continue to assess every threat or potential threat, unknown, that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
So he hasn't rolled it out.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk.
They didn't roll it out.
Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question.
So they haven't rolled it out, and it won't shut up now.
What is your opinion, Jen? Your honest to God, downright heartfelt opinion.
Lately, in the beginning, I thought that, you know, we've been watching the TikToks and all these reports and all this stuff that came out. I thought, wow, this is great. Finally, it's going to come out. But then when I see that it's all correlated around things that they're trying to distract us from, I don't trust the government. I don't trust Biden. I don't trust anybody. And I personally don't think it's anything but just things that we never noticed before, because Trump said he saw, Trump didn't even know that there was like 3 balloons when he was in office. So I think it's just a false flag. I don't think it's true. I think it's all a bunch of BS. So that's what I think. Unfortunately, we're living in a time right now where they're trying to make a one, what do you call it? One
new world order. So they got 2 more years to do it, because, you know, DeSantis or Trump will get in and it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't think it's aliens. And if it was, it'd be great. I would like to welcome. You know, we've had so many different people that were on the show, like Travis Walton last week, about being abducted, and that they come in peace. And first of all, like I said, no alien craft is going to be shot down. They're too far advanced to be shot down. They would shoot us down first.
Yeah.
So, and then did you know that the one missile missed the thing in the sky?
Yeah.
It missed it. So that goes to show you what kind of, you know, it's probably just, could be just China or Russia. We don't know. And what did the psychic said? He said we were getting into war with, I forget, was it Russia or China? So in China, they're buying up all our technology, which, our farmland, and they're buying all the land, and they're, you know, why are we letting them buy the land, which is beyond me? Why are we letting them buy our farmland, Sean?
I don't know.
America, they should stop that right now. They should stop that somehow. Congress should do something. They should not be buying up any more of our farmyard. Did you see the movie Red Dawn? Did anybody out there see the movie Red Dawn?
Yes, I did.
And they said they could never. How do you know it can never happen? Because if they have our land, they can come here. They can build some kind of underground thing, base or something. We don't know. I don't trust the Chinese. I don't trust them at all. When they want, I mean, everything, all our products are made. I bet everything I have in my office here in my studio is made in China. Probably nothing is made in the United States. Nothing.
Michael says it's to create confusion.
Yeah, I think you're right because, and then a lot of people are saying they're coming out. They could be something to cover up what Pfizer did, and about how all these people who got the vaccine are not normal anymore. They're sick. Their spike proteins are so high, and they're trying to distract us from that because they're going to be in trouble. I mean, for what they did.
Well, see, that's another
genocide.
thing about,
I mean, come on.
Right. Now, look, they had that the House meeting talking to those dudes from was it Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw any of that.
No, I didn't.
Why they were what's her name? The blonde. She was shadow banned, or they took off.
Twitter
account.
Yeah.
And
well, she was a little outrageous, though. But you have to say that.
But no. But they were like checking out what the doctors are wanting to say about the virus. Or
they can't. That should never happen. They should have let all the doctors speak. They should have never just. But it
never happened. So all of a sudden they're having this big house meeting, right? And then all of a sudden we got UFOs up in the sky.
Exactly.
So
everybody saw that tape with the CEO of Pfizer, and the one guy was undercover for I cannot remember anything. I'm gonna have to start taking notes. I think it's my senior moments. I'm having more and more of them. That they were undercover. They pretended he was looking for. They were on he was like a dating thing, and he got the guy from Pfizer to open up to him. The guy from Pfizer was a total idiot, and he just totally blew everything up. So yeah, I mean, I don't trust any of this, and that's funny. Like the one, something was.
Wait, Michael says Project Veritas.
Yes, Project Veritas. Thank you.
And he got fired for that.
Yeah, he did get fired. Good. I didn't even know that.
Our own government knows exactly what it's doing to us just for power and control.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the lockdown was ridiculous. It was all about power. And we can't never let it happen again. And they're trying to do it now. Like, this is trust the government. I'm going to save you from the aliens. They're going to have a Project Blue Beam, and they're going to have all these, everybody's going to be outside. Just like at the end of if you saw the end of the Super Bowl, and it was kind of strange. We're having all these UFOs. And then at the end of the Super Bowl, they had the commercial for the UFOs. Did you guys see that? Did you see that, Sean?
No, I didn't.
Oh, wow. Just kind of funny. It's like at the end of the Super Bowl, and that's exactly what's coming on the airways.
Michael says they can control the Q factor to keep us complacent.
Yeah.
They want you to think something major is going to happen, so they hold us down in place.
Yeah, because they want you to trust them. Oh, look, we'll help you. We'll protect you from these bad guys.
But then again, look at this is the 21st century, and they've been doing this bullshit for the last 20, 30 years, Jenny, and people don't.
It hasn't never been at this bad. It has never been this bad that I recall. Now, come on. We lived through a pandemic. We lived through lockdowns, government telling us what we can do, telling us we have to get an injection if we want to keep our job. How many people lost their jobs? How many pregnancies were aborted? How many people died of blood clots from this stupid vaccine that they tried to cover up all the statistics, all the reports on VARs? No. The government is not your friend. Sorry. And if you're going to trust them from an alien invasion, I'd rather have the aliens come down and abduct me and take me to their planet. Okay. And if it's all fake, they're fake, because I'm telling you, the aliens are already here. And half of them are made biologically from the government's using cloning and hibernation and all that stuff. You don't know what's out there. And all these creatures you see are probably them messing around with the genome code. They're probably making these things. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. It's like you can't trust the government. And read 1984. If you have to go back, go watch The Red Dawn again. Watch all these movies. Watch The Island of Dr. Moreau. I mean, come on.
That was a good movie.
They already know how to clone, and they've already probably done it. Biden probably has a clone sitting in the White House somewhere. And
He
it's
does
pretending
have
to be
one.
him.
He does have
An
one.
AI. Yes. And half the time these AIs think they're humans. They're probably walking around. They think they have a conscience. And they've already have this alien made. They already made the alien. It's already made in their lab somewhere probably at Area 51 for our we know. And they're going to have this alien present itself at some point. And it's not even a real alien. They made it in the lab. Look at what Fauci did. You know what I'm saying? It's probably already made in a lab. They're going to come out with this alien. Like, what's his name? Val Thor.
You and that Val Ford dude.
Val Thor is going to come knocking on the door and say, yes, we've come back. We want me to have peace. We want us to be united.
I feel sorry for the young people in today's world. You know, I mean, come on, Jen, growing up, how much shit did we get into and we're still alive? You know what I mean? And we're still alive.
Yeah.
Where you can't even, lift a finger without, breaking a nail and crying and, oh, you're not allowed to do that. So we're going to blame that wood because you broke your fingernail on it. And, oh, we're just going to have to go through and give you a pity party, buy you crayons and coloring books and all that good crap.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you got my Irish going here, honey, and it's not St. Patrick's Day yet.
Yeah, well, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we go on to our next segment.
What is our next segment?
We don't talk about that one. I wanted to hear what the pilot said about. Did you happen to watch that?
Yeah.
It was on CNN.
Yeah, I saw it.
Did you see that one?
Yes, you're breaking up, Jen.
You can't hear me?
You're breaking.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. You're really breaking up.
That's what I was trying to find something for you so you could hear what these pilots said on. I just want to show this real quick. I'm going to share my screen. That's probably because I was trying to play this TikTok. I'm not TikTok, YouTube. I'm having brain freezes, buddy. I got to take my ginkgo biloba. Okay. Can you see that screen yet?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play it.
It's that other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this is all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
And what do we know about the efforts to recover the wreckage of this second object? It looks like NORAD just put out an email a short time ago, and it sounds like they're trying to recover it.
They did. And what we were told yesterday is that the object was shot down over frozen water. So it landed on the ice, essentially. We don't know what kind of condition it's in, whether it is intact, for example, but recovery efforts have been launched. And according to the Defense Department, they have been able to recover a significant amount of debris. Now, notably, they still don't know what this object is, where it came from, or even what direction it was headed in, or what direction it came from. It is just all very murky at this point. But they do say that the FBI is going to be taking the lead on analyzing the debris. If that sounds familiar, it's because just last week we saw that another Chinese spy balloon, I should say a Chinese spy balloon, because we don't know what this one actually is, was shot down, also being analyzed by the FBI. But right now, there are just so many more questions than answers, Jim.
Yeah, and as the hours go on, it gets more and more mysterious. All right, Natasha.
The one they shot down in Canada, it was kind of strange because they showed a picture of it, and I sent it to you. That was on Fox News. It was a cylinder one that they were talking about, and then that you don't see it anymore. They only showed it the one time, and it did not look like any balloon I ever saw. So,
but
I don't know. You get I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know. But is it fake? Maybe. Is it all made up? Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of weird. What is Anthony saying? Yeah.
It wasn't. He said, Michael says it wasn't.
Okay. It wasn't
trust,
what?
I trust Michael.
It wasn't what? Fake? What, Michael?
It didn't deflate.
Well, this one wasn't a balloon. It was metal or some kind of, it wasn't made up of. It sort of looked like the thing from Star Wars. Okay. That's when I first saw it, I go, oh, that's not no balloon. So I don't know. Makes you wonder, is it fake? Is it not fake? Because you get torn. Is it fake or is it not fake? I don't know. But we're going to go on to the last 20 minutes or so and talk about Valentine's Day.
Okay.
My unfavorite. I'm not crazy about. Did you read that? So there's some places that are banned Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, what was it?
Saudi Arabia
Saudi
banned.
Arabia, yeah.
Commission for Promotion of Virtue and Prevention and Vice restricts the sale of roses and anything red. Know why?
Why?
They didn't say why.
True.
Why are they restricting Valentine's Day?
Maybe it's part of their religion.
None of
Who
these.
knows? I don't know. That's.
I mean, I love roses, but sometimes red roses remind me of death, of funerals. That's why I'm not really crazy about the red rose. I like pink roses, yellow roses, white roses.
I hate red roses. It was funny. I picked up some flowers for my mom.
That was nice.
At my store. Yeah. And it was close to $30 for like 8 roses, man. I'm like, what the hell?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
I didn't pay that much because I took some to the cemetery from my mom and dad.
I mean, I don't know. You know what I like about Valentine's Day, especially at my job? And it's really, really funny. You have all these young guys in their 20s and 30s that have girlfriends or wives, and they want to cook them a dinner. Okay. And they just stand at the meat section and they're like so confused. And I'm
so
like,
they're cooking the dinner. The husband's
cooking the dinner, but they don't know what to buy. They don't know what to buy. So I end up giving them their whole recipe, their whole menu for the evening.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I do. And then they do come back like a couple days later and say, thank you for that. She really enjoyed it. You know,
there you go.
It's funny.
You should have your own show, the Butcher with the Cookbook.
I don't know, but you know, it's just really neat to see how they're and I mean, they're serious about cooking dinner for their girlfriends or their wives, and just kind of makes me feel good because my son's in Indiana and I'm 60 years old, and it's like helping out a youngster, telling them what to do. Yeah,
that's nice.
I know the majority of females love filet mignon, and I don't understand why, because filet mignon. Oh, it's ugly. It's nasty, man. I can't deal with that crap.
No,
I mean, it's the leanest piece of meat on the cow.
No, I want some fat on my meat.
What's that?
I want some fat on my meat.
There you go. I'm going to tell our customers right now.
It's juicier. It's better for you. I think fat. Well, I do the keto.
Oh, no doubt. Fat is good. Fat is good on the meat. You need protein. I don't give a crap.
Yeah, you need at least.
Hi, Doreen.
You need to get your waste, your protein. So one of the creepy facts about Valentine's Day is that no one really knows the origin of the holiday. The most popular theory about Valentine's Day's origins is the Emperor Claudius II. He didn't want Rome men to marry during wartime. And so Bishop Valentine went against his wishes and performed secret weddings. I guess that was how Valentine's Day started. For this, Valentine was jailed. Bishop Valentine was jailed and executed. Well, that's not nice. And so while in jail, he wrote a note to a jealous daughter, signing it from your Valentine. That's nice. But he got executed. Yeah. But that's weird how the Romans you couldn't get married during wartime.
No, but there's a pagan thing that happens on the 15th of February, and I cannot say the word. It's called Lupercalia, something like that. It's during the feast, women would be whipped in the belief that it would help them become fertile.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's a good thing. They should probably still do that now if you're having problems.
I'm sure they do.
Well, there was one. It was on Versailles. That Philip could not conceive. Couldn't. I think it was Philip, or was it? Was it Louis? Which one couldn't conceive? I think it was it Louis or the other. It was. I think it was Philip. He couldn't conceive, so he told him to sleep with the Blessed Mother statue.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if it worked.
Come on,
But
don't.
another creepy fact. Moving on to another creepy fact about Valentine's Day that no one really knows the origins of this one either. But however, historians know that the brutal and bloody origin was very different than the hearts and chocolates that people think about Valentine's Day. That's normally associated with Valentine's Day. One theory states that Valentine's Day originates from Roman feast of Lupercalia,
That's what I just said. Yeah.
which was from February 13th to the 15th.
That's
Yeah. You just said
and then there's a thing. There's a thing too. Also with that, the women would put their names in a big hat, and guys would pull the name out, and the name that the guy pulls out, he has to be with her for a year.
Well, didn't they do something like that at Renaissance Festival? Like they had some kind of thing like that going back to that.
I don't know because I'm not really big into the Renaissance yet. All I know is that they have good turkey wings, and that's all I know. Turkey legs. But
So
check this out. Check this creepy thing out. The irony of King Henry VIII. On February 14, 1537, King Henry VIII declared Valentine's Day an official holiday. However, this brings us to the most ironic and creepy facts about Valentine's Day. King Henry VIII was famous for having many wives and then killing them when they didn't give him a son.
there you
Come
go.
on. Come on. How can it be?
Well, it's really the man that determines whether it's a male or female. So it is usually the man should get killed.
Oh, well,
Yeah, but
I'm just saying, that's a creepy fact. But that's my show on next week.
good.
This right at 10 o'clock on Into the Night with Sean Kelly. I'm going to
good.
talk about the origins of Valentine's Day.
Well, yeah, that's because I like the one about the Valentine Bishop, but men spend 150. They said men spend about $150 on candy, and women just about 74. So
I can guarantee it, they spend a hell of a lot more money on Valentine's Day than 150.
there's something about that
Guaranteed.
little legend about a sparrow flying over the head of a woman. If
Yeah.
this is a sparrow, if a woman saw a sparrow flying overhead, she would end up marrying poor, but at the same time would be very happy. So money doesn't always buy everything. And if she saw a goldfinch overhead, she would marry a millionaire.
Have
I'm gonna
you
have to go
have any
look- I'm gonna go-
goldfinches out there your
No, but
area?
I'm gonna have to do some. I'm gonna have to do some bird watching.
Do I have to buy some goldfinches and bring
guess.
them over to your house?
Yes. Yeah. See what's this other one about?
But
And then the
like
first-
I told you at the beginning of the show, the second one was being lonely about women mailing themselves candy and cards. And to me,
Yeah,
that's really bad.
well, you saw that song with Miley Cyrus. I can buy
Yeah.
myself flowers.
Right, but
I can write in this. I don't need you. I can do it myself.
right, but
Buy
do you
yourself
have
flowers
do
for
women
yourself.
do women have that attitude?
Now
It's
they
like,
do.
wow.
A lot of women have that attitude now. They don't need a man for anything. People
If you go up to somebody, you go up to a woman and say, "Happy Valentine's Day," your smile looks pretty. My God, they're just like on cloud nine, and I mean it.
yeah, they
I
are.
did it a couple times today.
That's
you know.
nice.
Because they're walking around the store and they're so damn depressed because they're lonely, and you just go up and say something nice, and they're smiling and they're on cloud nine. So,
Well, that was nice of you.
okay, I'm glad because
And another legend was the first, if an unwed woman or single woman, the first man that she saw on Valentine's Day would become her spouse.
oh my God.
That's what's one good reason to stay inside. Yeah.
Well, my dear, it's getting close to the witching hour.
Yes, it is. Well, tomorrow's my first show.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna watch you.
In the Know with Jenny, and I have a pursuit. I'll have a co-pilot that's just going to be there to help me maneuver things, and she'll probably get into some topics too. So it should be fun. So tomorrow is dating in 2023, how it's changed, and some tips and things to avoid. And then the second half is, we talked about this before. Does pickles, the pickle size really matter when it comes to?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you'll find out.
You know what? You got to go on TikTok and find out from the women who post the pickles.
Yeah, seriously. So
Okay, I'm
I
gonna
want to
probably
thank
leave
everybody for joining us tonight. It was fun, and if you think
Yes.
you'd be a good guest for Chasing Prophecy Radio, please give us a holler. We'd be loving to have you on the show. Members who like us on Facebook, follow us on. We on Twitter and YouTube, I do believe, and we're on
Yeah.
Rumble. And if you have Roku, please add us to your our channel. You can listen to us. There's some back.
Can you tell the people how to get to our show on Roku?
You go to the search where it says search channels, and you put in United Public Radio in there. It's a pink. I don't know why they chose pink instead of green that we usually use for the station. Pink logo, and just click on it, add it, and you'll see, like, we were streaming live tonight. I know we were. Somebody saw us on there, so we were streaming live tonight on Roku. But they have a lot of old ones. They don't have a lot loaded yet, but the live shows are usually on there. So if you don't want to watch, if you want to see us big on screen, go to Roku. But everybody have a great night.
Yes.